I pulled out the chair, slowly, and sat down at their table like I belonged there. Stephanie's hand froze midair, her wine glass trembling. Daniel's face drained of color, his mouth opening, but no words coming out. I looked at them, my wife and my best friend, sharing a romantic dinner they thought was their little secret. I smiled, calm, collected. Then I placed the folder on the table. 5 years of betrayal neatly organized between two covers. You two look surprised, I said, leaning back in my chair. I figured this was the perfect place to talk about divorce terms. And just as Daniel reached for his phone, I added, "Don't bother. Your wife already has everything. She should be calling any second now." You know, people always ask me how I stayed so calm that night. But when you've sacrificed a decade of your life for people who stab you in the back, you either break or you take control. What would you do if you discovered your spouse and best friend betraying you for 5 years straight? Subscribe to our channel and stay, because this is how I turned their secret relationship into my new beginning. They say hindsight is 20/20, but looking back, I wonder how I missed the signs. I'm Michael Thompson, 38 years old, a software engineer from Boston. For 10 years, I thought I was living the dream. I had a beautiful wife, Stephanie, a woman I met in college who lit up every room she walked into. We had a house in the suburbs, weekend getaways, and friends who filled our lives with laughter. And at the center of it all was Daniel, my best friend since freshman year at MIT. We were inseparable, coding projects, late-night pizza runs, even backpacking through Europe after graduation. When I married Stephanie, there was no question. Daniel was my best man. I trusted him like a brother. And Stephanie, she was the reason I worked those long nights, taking on extra projects just to give us the life we dreamed of. We weren't rich, but I made sure we lived comfortably. 2 vacations a year, Hawaii, Paris, wherever Stephanie wanted to go. I thought providing for her was how I showed love. But what I didn't realize was that every late night at the office was an open door for betrayal. You see, Stephanie always said she understood my workload. She'd smile, kiss me goodbye, and tell me she was heading to her sister's place or meeting friends. I never questioned it. Why would I? We had trust, or so I thought. Daniel would drop by sometimes, watch a game, grab a beer, talk about old times. He'd ask about Stephanie, joke about how lucky I was. I thought it was harmless banter. Now, I realize he wasn't joking. There were little things I brushed off, times when Stephanie seemed distant, or when Daniel would avoid eye contact if Stephanie walked into the room. But I was too focused on being the good husband and the loyal friend to see what was right in front of me. It wasn't until that afternoon, 3 months ago, that my perfect little world shattered. I was digging through Stephanie's purse, looking for a receipt she needed for taxes. We always shared finances, so it wasn't unusual. But what I found wasn't a grocery bill or a gas receipt. It was from the Ritz-Carlton. A suite for 2 with dinner and champagne. Dated on a weekend, she swore she was in Providence visiting her sister. At first, I wanted to believe it was a mistake. Maybe she booked it for someone else. Maybe a surprise for me. But then I saw it. The signature at the bottom, Daniel's unmistakable handwriting. My stomach dropped. My hands went cold. I remember just standing there, staring at that piece of paper like it was written in another language. That was the moment everything clicked. The late nights, the secret smiles, the sudden girls' weekends that never added up. I knew better than to confront her without proof. Emotions were high, but I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me fall apart. So I did what I do best. I started digging. I wasn't the kind of man to act on impulse, especially not with something this serious. After finding that receipt, I knew I needed more than just suspicion. I needed undeniable proof. Stephanie and I had shared passwords since the early days of our marriage. It was a symbol of trust back then. Ironic, isn't it? So that night, while she was out with friends, I logged into her email. At first it was innocent. Confirmation emails, online shopping, the usual. But then I found a folder labeled reservations. My heart pounded as I opened it. There they were, multiple bookings at hotels across the city, different dates, different places, but always the same pattern. Weekends when I was working late or out of town. Each reservation had two guests. I dug deeper, searching for any communication that could link her to Daniel. That's when I found the emails, hidden under a random contact name, SD Logistics. Clever. Stephanie and Daniel. Messages confirming meetups, playful jokes, even discussions about avoiding certain places where they might run into people we knew. Every word felt like a dagger. But I wasn't done. I needed something solid, something that would hold up if they tried to lie their way out. So I hired a private investigator. It felt surreal, like I was living someone else's life. But I knew I had to stay focused. For the next 2 months, the PI tracked them. Photos of them entering hotels, leaving restaurants, even catching a weekend trip when Stephanie told me she was visiting her mother. Each update I received chipped away at whatever hope I had left. But with every piece of evidence, my resolve grew stronger. I wasn't going to confront them in a fit of rage. No, I wanted them to feel exposed, vulnerable, cornered. Then one afternoon, I got the message that set everything in motion. The PI forwarded me a screenshot, an email from Stephanie to Daniel. Dinner at La Belle Vie on Friday, 7 p.m. Same table as last time. Can't wait to see you. La Belle Vie, one of the most expensive restaurants downtown. A place Stephanie always said was too extravagant whenever I suggested we go. I stared at that message for a long time. This was it, the perfect opportunity. I called the restaurant and made my own reservation, requesting a table with a clear view of theirs. The next few days were a blur of controlled emotions. I went to work, acted normal at home, even kissed Stephanie goodbye like nothing was wrong. But inside, I was counting down the hours. When Friday came, I took my time getting ready. I chose my best suit, the one I wore for important business meetings. Not for them, but for me. I slipped the folder of evidence into my briefcase and headed out. Arriving at the restaurant early, I made sure everything was in place. The waiter, sensing something was off, gave me a polite nod, but didn't ask questions. At exactly 7 p.m., I saw them walk in. Stephanie was glowing, dressed in a way she hadn't for me in years. Daniel looked relaxed, confident, like a man who thought he'd gotten away with everything. They didn't notice me. Why would they? In their minds, I was probably still the oblivious husband working late. I watched as they ordered drinks, laughing softly, leaning into each other like a perfect couple. It was almost cinematic. Two people so wrapped up in their fantasy that they never saw the storm coming. I waited, letting them settle in, watching them toast to whatever lies they told themselves. And when the moment felt right, I stood up, straightened my jacket, and walked toward their table. Every step felt heavier than the last, but I wasn't nervous. I was ready. As I approached their table, time seemed to slow down. I could hear the clinking of glasses, the soft hum of conversation around us, but all I could focus on was their faces. Stephanie was mid-laugh, her hand resting casually on Daniel's wrist. They looked comfortable, too comfortable. When I finally stopped at their table, neither of them noticed me right away, so I cleared my throat, just loud enough to break their little bubble. Stephanie looked up first. Her smile froze. Her eyes widened like she'd seen a ghost. Daniel followed, turning his head. And I swear, I've never seen a man lose color that fast in my life. I didn't say a word at first. I simply pulled out the empty chair across from them and sat down. Slow, deliberate. Mind if I join you? I asked, my voice calm, almost too calm. They were stunned. Stephanie's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, glancing around like he was searching for an escape route. But there wasn't one. I placed my briefcase on the table, clicking it open with precision. Out came the folder, thick, worn from the weeks I'd spent filling it with their lies. I slid it toward them. Neither of them reached for it. You know, I began, leaning back in my chair, I always wondered why you two got along so well. Turns out, 5 years gives you plenty of time to build chemistry. Stephanie finally found her voice, barely a whisper. Michael, I can explain. I raised my hand to stop her. Don't insult me, Stephanie. We're past explanations. Daniel tried to speak next. It's not what you think. I almost laughed at that. Really, Daniel? Because what I think is that my best friend and my wife have been sneaking around behind my back for half a decade. And this, I tapped the folder, says I'm right. Silence fell over the table. The weight of reality was sinking in for them. I signaled the waiter and ordered a glass of whiskey. Neat. Then I looked at Daniel and smiled. Oh, and by the way, your wife has a copy of everything in here. I sent it to her this afternoon. Daniel's eyes darted to his phone, which was now buzzing relentlessly on the table. Caller ID, Emily, his wife. Stephanie's hands were shaking. Tears welled up in her eyes, but I felt nothing. No rage, no heartbreak, just clarity. This was the moment I knew there was no going back. No amount of apologies or excuses could undo what they had done. I wasn't here to scream. I wasn't here to beg for answers. I was here to end it. I took a slow sip of my whiskey as they sat in stunned silence. I've already spoken to my lawyer, I continued, my voice steady. The divorce papers will be ready by Monday. You'll be hearing from him. Stephanie finally broke down, whispering through tears. Michael, please, don't do this here. I looked her dead in the eyes. You chose this place every time you lied to me. I think it's fitting we end it here too. Daniel tried to get up, but I stopped him with one last comment. Daniel, if I were you, I'd answer that phone. Emily doesn't sound patient. He sat back down, defeated. I stood up, buttoned my jacket, and looked at both of them one last time. You two enjoy your dinner. With that, I walked out, leaving behind not just the restaurant, but the life I thought I had. There was no dramatic scene, no shouting match, just two betrayers, sitting in the ruins of their secret, and me, walking away with my dignity intact. Walking out of that restaurant wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. I knew Stephanie and Daniel would scramble, try to control the damage, spin their lies, maybe even beg for forgiveness once the shock wore off. But I wasn't about to give them the chance. I spent the next 48 hours executing a plan I had quietly crafted the moment I confirmed their affair. First, I closed our joint bank accounts. Weeks before that dinner, I'd already moved my direct deposits into a private account under my name only. Stephanie never noticed, too busy with her double life. Next, I gathered every financial document, mortgage papers, car titles, investments. The house, it was in my name alone. Stephanie never cared about the paperwork when we bought it. She just wanted the keys and the granite countertops. Then came the digital sweep. I changed every password, email, cloud storage, even the smart home system. If she wanted access to anything tied to my life, she was going to find locked doors everywhere she turned. By Sunday morning, I had already met with my lawyer. The divorce papers were ready to serve first thing Monday. But I wasn't done with Daniel. You see, Daniel wasn't just my best friend. He was also my business partner in a small tech startup we'd co-founded years ago. I knew his weaknesses, his complacency, his tendency to overlook details. While he was busy whining and dining my wife, I had been documenting every instance where he'd neglected his duties, misused company funds for business trips that were actually rendezvous with Stephanie. My lawyer helped me draft a formal notice, backed by evidence, forcing Daniel to resign from the company to avoid legal action. His shares, bought out at a fraction of their worth, thanks to a clause he never bothered to read when we started the company. By Monday afternoon, Daniel had lost both his marriage and his career. As for Stephanie, she tried calling over and over. At first it was tears, voicemails begging me to talk. Then came the anger, accusing me of being cold, of throwing everything away. I didn't respond to a single message. Instead, I left a note with my lawyer for when she was served. Stephanie, this isn't revenge. It's accountability. You made your choices. Now I'm making mine. When she was finally served the papers at her office, I heard from mutual friends that she had a full breakdown. But sympathy, I had none left to give. I also made sure the truth didn't stay hidden. I forwarded select pieces of evidence, just enough, to our close friends. The ones who had shared dinners, holidays, vacations with us. I didn't add commentary, no dramatic explanations, just the facts. Let them draw their own conclusions. The fallout was swift. Stephanie became a pariah in our social circle. Daniel's wife filed for divorce within a week. His reputation in the industry? Destroyed. And me? I stayed quiet, focused, professional. I sold the house within a month. Got a good price, too. Packed my things and relocated to a city where no one knew my name or my story. But before I left, I did one last thing. I reserved a table at La Belle Vie, the same one they used for their secret dinners. I sat there alone, ordered the most expensive whiskey on the menu, and raised a glass. Not to them, but to myself, to surviving betrayal, to reclaiming my life, and to proving that sometimes the best revenge is handled with precision, not passion. As I sipped that whiskey, my phone buzzed one last time. A message from Stephanie. I hope you're happy. I stared at it for a moment, then deleted it without replying. Because I wasn't just happy, I was free. It's funny how quiet life gets after you burn the bridges that were never real to begin with. The day Stephanie realized I wasn't coming back, wasn't answering her calls, wasn't giving her a second chance, that's when reality hit her hardest. I heard from a mutual friend that she moved back in with her parents temporarily. Apparently, luxury apartments are hard to afford when your lifestyle was built on someone else's hard work. She tried to fight the divorce terms at first, claiming she deserved half of everything. But my lawyer was prepared. With all the evidence of her infidelity, she didn't stand a chance in court. In the end, she walked away with far less than she expected, and a reputation that followed her everywhere. As for Daniel, his downfall was even more satisfying. After being forced out of our company, word spread quickly in the tech community. No one wanted to work with a man known for betraying both his business partner and his own family. I heard his wife, Emily, didn't just divorce him. She took their 2 kids and moved across the country. Daniel was left alone, jobless, and living in a cheap apartment far from the life he once bragged about. But here's the thing. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. I let the consequences speak for themselves. In the months that followed, I focused entirely on rebuilding, not just my career, but myself. I landed a lead role at a prominent software firm in Seattle. New city, new start, no ghosts from the past lurking around every corner. One afternoon, about 6 months after everything unfolded, I got an unexpected email. It was from Daniel. Michael, I know I have no right to ask for anything. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I lost everything, and I deserve it. I hope one day you can forgive me. I stared at that message for a while. Did I feel pity? No. Did I feel anger? Not anymore. What I felt was nothing, and that was the greatest victory of all. I didn't reply, because forgiveness wasn't something he earned, and closure wasn't something I owed him. A week later, I received a similar message from Stephanie, a long-winded apology mixed with regret, excuses, and a desperate attempt to rewrite history. She said things like, I was lonely, and it just happened, as if 5 years of betrayal was some kind of accident. She ended with, I'll always love you. I laughed when I read that part. Love doesn't lie. Love doesn't cheat in the dark while pretending to be loyal in the light. I deleted her message just like Daniel's. The real climax wasn't in the restaurant that night. It wasn't even in the courtroom. It was in these quiet moments, when I realized I had taken back control of my life, and they were left drowning in the mess they created. The fallout wasn't explosive. It was slow, suffocating, the kind that lingers long after the dust has settled. Stephanie and Daniel had built their affair on secrecy, lies, and stolen moments, and in the end, they had nothing left but each other's broken promises. I, on the other hand, had peace. I remember sitting on the balcony of my new apartment, overlooking the Seattle skyline, thinking about how far I'd come. Not once did I feel the urge to seek revenge beyond what I'd already done. Because true revenge isn't about destruction. It's about walking away with your head held high while they crumble under the weight of their own decisions. That's exactly what I did, and I never looked back. It's strange how life has a way of teaching you the hardest lessons through the people you trust the most. When I first married Stephanie, I believed loyalty was unbreakable. When I stood beside Daniel as his best friend, I thought brotherhood meant something sacred. But betrayal doesn't come from enemies. It comes from the ones you never thought would hurt you. After everything, after the lies, the evidence, the quiet revenge, I realized something far more important than how to catch a cheater or outsmart a backstabbing friend. I realized that peace isn't given, it's reclaimed. I used to think that walking away meant weakness, that staying and fighting for something, even when it was broken, proved strength. But no, strength is knowing when to let go, when to stop pouring your soul into people who only see you as a convenience, or worse, a fool. Now, a year later, I live a life free from pretense. I don't miss the old house. I don't miss the fake smiles at dinner parties or the constant effort to please someone who never truly valued me. What I found was far better than revenge. I found clarity, I found freedom, and most importantly, I found myself again. If you're listening to this and you're in a place where trust has been shattered, where you're questioning your worth because of someone else's betrayal, hear me when I say this. You are not defined by the people who fail you. You are defined by how you rise after they do. Don't waste your energy seeking to destroy them. Let the truth and their own choices do that for you. Focus on rebuilding, on walking away with dignity intact, because at the end of the day, the greatest revenge is living a life where they no longer have any place. And trust me, there's no sweeter victory than that.